What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. Have an exciting one today. We're doing another in the My Favorite Team Ever series, talking about the 1983 NBA champion, Philadelphia 76ers. I am happy to be joined by the founder, the mentor mogul of Mom Your Business, where she works to alleviate poverty by equipping Black and brown women with the tools and resources they need to succeed as entrepreneurs. Philly's own Tanya Morris. Tanya, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Brandon, for having me. I'm so excited to talk about one of my favorite things, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So what do you remember being a Philly fan prior to that 83 season?
Yeah, so for me, actually, I remember a lot because actually, ironically, the season before that, the Sixers were up 3-1 on the Boston Celtics. They came back and tied that series in Game 6 at the Philadelphia Spectrum, and I was in the building for that particular game. I was actually at that game, me, my mom, and a friend, and to say that the fans were livid would be an understatement. I mean, throwing things, and then Celtics fans were at the game. So it was just an epic encounter. And you leave a game like that thinking that there's just no way that they come back and win this series. They're going up to Boston. There's absolutely no way that we're going back to championship, that we're going to championship this year. And to all of our surprise, they went in there and snatched that game like you would not believe. Doc was incredible. Andrew Toney was amazing. So this is pre-Moses Malone. We're talking about Caldwell Jones and Darryl Dawkins. And, we're talking about guys that aren't even with us anymore. And so that is the memory leading up to that year because we didn't know what was going to happen after that. Because they ended up losing to the Lakers. That was the year Doc did that incredible move under the basket. Magic had 42 in Kareem's place that year as the starting center in his rookie year. Like it was just an epic battle. It was an epic battle.
What a time to be able to witness all that. Like that, I'm jealous. And I want to touch on a couple of names that you pulled up. So Caldwell Jones, I feel like people don't really know a ton about Caldwell Jones. Then Darryl Dawkins. I read his autobiography, also born on January 11th, like me. So I was very invested in Darryl Dawkins, the guy who was shattering backboards.
Chocolate Thunder.
Yes. From Planet Lovetron, was it?
Lovetron, yes, sir.
Lovetron. So you had all these characters on this team, and then obviously Julius Erving, the doctor.
The doctor.
So I was reading up on Julius to prepare for this. I did not know he started in the ABA with the Nets.
Correct.
I didn't know that the Nets basically traded him to get the money to be able to participate in the NBA after the merger.
That's correct. That's exactly what happened. And actually, prior to Doc coming to the Sixers, I just was playing basketball. I still remember seeing him on the cover of the Philadelphia Daily News that said, "There's a doctor in the house." And I was like, and he had a Nets jersey on. I'm like, what is going, like, who is this guy? Like I'm literally, because I'm not really a fan. I just like to play it. I'm like, who is this guy? And I was like, and the city was just a buzz. People that knew, they were like, we got Dr. J, we got Dr. J. And then they went to the championship that year with Doug Collins and Henry Bibby and George McGinnis and Caldwell Jones and Darryl Dawkins were part of that team as well. So that's when I really fell in love with the Sixers, was when they got Dr. J. That was it for me.
That would certainly do it. I was also reading he was offered to the Knicks first, and the Knicks turned him down.
Yep. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Ain't that something right there within your own city, within your own backyard? Because when the ABA folded, a lot of these teams did not know what the future was going to look like, right? Obviously, the Knicks were part of the NBA, but you have teams like the Indiana Pacers, the Denver Nuggets, the San Antonio Spurs. Those were teams, then the Buffalo Braves, those teams that were part of that ABA that were coming into the NBA. It was really a risk in this real merger. And
Mm.
so the Knicks they just didn't, let's just say they didn't know no better, for lack of a better word.
What could have been?
What?
Because, like you said, immediately made the finals, and he basically made y'all Eastern Conference contenders all the way, obviously, to this '83 team. Because y'all made a couple of finals appearances
Yeah.
leading up to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the year before, we lost that 3-1 that year when in '82, right? And so we often say that was our ring that Boston got the year before that when they beat your Houston Rockets, as
The
a matter of
Rockets.
fact, with Ralph Sampson, and we often say that was our ring. Had we not lost that when they came from when they came back from being down 3-1. It's such a anomaly when you're up 3-1 to come for somebody to come back when you're down. And Boston did it twice. When you think about it, to the Sixers, they were down 3-1. They came back and took it to a 7-game series twice that year.
Jeez,
Then those 2 seasons.
just a
Yeah.
cold team.
Yes.
And so, in addition to Dr. J, a couple of the key players you mentioned, Andrew Toney. Explain how great Andrew Toney was, because Charles Barkley called him the best player he ever played with.
Yeah. 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 Andrew was amazing. I mean, this guy was 6'4", right? Came from a small school, Southern Mississippi, I think was the name of the school he went to, and had a awesome first step and just a dagger shot. Like he
Mm.
would just shoot it in your face. I mean, the Boston Strangler, so much so he would kill Boston so much so till Boston said, listen, we're gonna go back, we're gonna go get the best defensive player, one of the best defensive player, and probably one of the best backcourt defensive player in the NBA, and Dennis Johnson.
Dennis Johnson.
Because we need some help. Who's actually one of my favorite players. I love that team when he was on Seattle, him and Gus Williams and downtown Freddie Brown and
Mm.
Lonnie Shelton and Jack Sigma. I love that team. And so they got Dennis Johnson just to deal with Andrew. That's how much he was killing them. They got Dennis Johnson just to deal with Andrew, and it worked sometimes, but sometimes it didn't.
He was cold. So you
Andrew
had
was cold.
Andrew Toney, whose career later we might talk about with his foot
Yeah,
injuries ended
yeah,
prematurely.
yeah.
Then also in 1978, I believe, drafted Mo Cheeks out of West
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M,
West
Hall of
Texas
Famer.
A&M. Yes.
People, he feels like one of those forgotten players to
Yeah.
me. Do you have a modern comp for him? Because I got one that came to mind, but I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm
the thing
spot on.
about thing about Mo was, and Mo is still even right now top 10 all time steals, top 10 all time assists to this day, right? So to your point, underrated point guard in the NBA. I think modern day to day, I don't know, it's kind of hard because Mo was such a true point guard, and I don't think we have a lot of those now. I think a
That's
guy
true.
like maybe like a Mike Conley, a true point guard. I know maybe Halliburton, but he's bigger and probably a little quicker than Mo, and probably doesn't defend real as much as well as Mo, because Mo was also all defense too.
So I was
Yeah,
thinking of like a Mike Conley, maybe
yeah,
Drew Holiday
maybe Drew.
hybrid.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where I went just based off of the highlights I've seen of him and just reading the resume as well,
yeah, yeah,
where
yeah,
like not as known, forgotten, because I mean, this team was stacked. We're about to talk about the rest of them too, but a guy who he could ball.
Yes, yeah. Mo was awesome. I remember when he got drafted, and that was back when the league had what 4, 6 rounds,
They had a
maybe.
million rounds. Everyone was getting drafted. I think I would have been drafted too. And they was like, they're just
Yeah.
drafting everybody.
So yeah, back then when there were like a lot of rounds and nobody knew who he was and came in and contributed immediately to this team with his leadership and with his ball handling and he made Henry Bibby expendable, right? Because he was everything that Bibby was not. He was a better shooter, was quicker, but he was a great player.
And then another player who came in that offseason too, Bobby Jones, the Secretary of Defense.
The Secretary of Defense. I still remember that night poster or being in the record store around the way. And I'm telling you, was like because it was tough because we were all big fans of George McGinnis. And we wanted, rest in peace, because he just recently passed away,
Mhm.
late last year. We really wanted to see him and Doc succeed together, right? And so the Sixers make this move. They send Bobby Jones to, send George McGinnis to Denver for Bobby Jones. And it's like, okay, so who's going to start now? And what is going to be the next move? Because they still had Ollie. They had guys like Ollie Jones, Ollie Johnson, and they still had. And the only reason I know Ollie because he went to Temple, and I'm a Temple alum, so I remember him, and it was just like, who is this guy? But he was just. Bobby, I never to this day, and I honestly can say to this day, I can't remember seeing nobody play one-on-one defense like Bobby Jones.
Eight
Bobby could
time,
guard, yeah, 8 times,
eight-time
eight
first
times.
team all defense.
Say no more, right?
I was reading the stories, people talking about him. It were kind of funny too, because I guess he was like a devout Christian, and so
Yes,
guys were afraid to even curse around him, even though he wasn't like you can't curse around me, but they were like we don't want to curse
yes,
around him,
yes,
and just all he cared about was my job. I'm gonna go play my role to the
yes,
best of my ability, and I'm gonna go
yes.
lock up whoever I'm guarding.
Yes,
They're done that
yes,
night.
yes. And that was the thing. The Sixers knew with that team that they could go on that court and it did not matter who was the top defender, that Bobby Jones would lock them down. Mo Cheeks would lock down the backcourt, and Doc could therefore go and do what he was great at, which was score. And Andrew could go do what he was great at, which was score. And that was now when people talk about big threes and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of funny to me because I grew up watching Doc and Andrew, and then you add Moses Malone, who was one of the greatest. And even then, you were a Moses fan. You couldn't help but be a Moses Malone fan, even when he was on the Rockets, because he was so dominant, right? So it was like those were the big threes that we saw, right? When I was growing up, and when you think about even with the Lakers,
Lakers.
Magic and Kareem and Worthy, like and Byron Scott, like these were the thing. These are the guys that I grew up watching. These were the guys that I grew up watching.
So what was the feeling before you got Moses? Right after that season, you lost in the finals.
Yep.
And that had kind of been the story ever since Doc had gotten there, where,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to the finals, Eastern Conference finals, but we can't quite get over that hump. What was the feeling when that loss in the 82 finals happened? Was it like, same old 76ers what was the vibe in the city or just with you personally?
Well, I think it was because the Lakers were good, right? Even though they had Magic, who was a rookie, everybody knew that they were good. And a lot of people may not remember this, and some of your listeners may, that when the Sixers they crushed Boston so bad, right, that the fans were up saying beat LA. Beat LA, right? And it's like, okay, what is happening right now that Boston fans are cheering for Sixers fans for Sixers to go and beat the Lakers because the Lakers were so awesome. And so when they went and it was, they were in it even after coming, because my concern was that How do they come back? Can they compete after coming off of such a monumental series, right?
Mm.
You're up 3-1. Boston ties it. You lost to them 3 when you were up 3-1 the year before, the season before. What is that going to look like? Are they going to be able to? And they took it to 7 games, right? And they took it to 7 games, and it took a almost perfect performance from Magic Johnson for them to not win the championship that year. So there was disappointment. There was definitely disappointment. But I remember the then owner at that time, Harold Katz, standing in the locker room with them guys and and the reports was that he was going to make sure that they made changes that next season. Nobody knew what it was, but they were going to make some monumental changes that next season. He said, we will never feel like this again. And he went and got the best center in the NBA and
Pulled
won
out
Moses Malone.
the big joker, threw it on the table. Moses Malone had just won MVP with the Rockets the year before.
Yep.
And then he's coming to the Sixers, to a team that had made the finals.
Yep.
That is like the big thing in recent history was KD joining the Warriors.
Yes.
How does that compare to this?
Yes. I think it's different on a couple levels. One, because Kevin was a free agent. And he chose to go to Golden State, right? That's the whole conversation around him going to Golden State. He went teamed up with the team that beat his team, and he could have stayed there. Moses, that was a trade. That was Caldwell Jones and the Sixers' #1 pick for Moses and some other things for Moses Malone. But we knew what we were getting, right? Whether or not, I don't know how it rang in Houston. They knew the greatness of Moses Malone, but what that ended up for them, what their feedback was from them as far as, man, we lost the greatest center ever, or what they thought they could build on with getting the Sixers #1 pick and some of the other things. We were ecstatic. I mean, I remember people coming out on their steps saying, we got Moses Malone, like, and riding on the subway, riding on buses, and people saying, yo, we got their papers, yo, we got Moses Malone, Moses Malone. Like, I just remember the excitement level. Like, it was just no question in the city's mind that in 1983, which actually was the year I graduated from high school, which is why it's special to me, that we were going to go win the NBA championship. There was just no question.
That is awesome. Well, the theme of this team that I keep coming back to is underrated superstars. And Moses Malone basically epitomizes that. The first player to be drafted professionally out of high school went to the ABA. The year after that, that's when Daryl Dawkins actually drafted by the Sixers out of high school, but Moses was the one in all of professional basketball. MVP with the Rockets.
Yep.
Just what a story. His parents were both under 6 feet, and Moses somehow ends up being 6'10". But he had small hands. Yes. So he had to tip the rebounds to himself, did he?
Yeah. And it's all about, and I'm sure you've heard Charles tell the story about from his rookie year until Moses died, he called him dad. And how, when they were going the road, Moses would come and knock on his door, and he'd be in there, Charles be in there eating pizza and doing whatever he was doing. He said Moses told Charles, you're not going to be the great player that you can be because you're fat and you're lazy. And he said those were the things that changed the trajectory of his career, because people don't realize Barkley, that round amount of rebound and all of that kind of stuff, that stuff was real. He was overweight, but he was quick as a cat, even at the weight that he was at, and he could jump. And so to have a mentor like Moses come and say, man, listen, you can be great, but you can't be doing this kind of stuff. And you would look at Moses and think he might not be the most in shape cat, but he understood those things, and he couldn't jump, but he ball control. And was one thing that I tell people all the time about rebounding. This is one of my angst with Joel, is rebounding is more about effort than anything else.
100%. Get the ball. Go
Effort
get the
and
ball.
position. Effort and position. And the thing about today's NBA, these guys don't put a body on anyone to get a rebound. They rely on their athleticism to get a rebound. And that's my issue. That's one of my main critiques of Joel is he relies on his height and his athleticism to get rebounds, and he never uses puts his body on anybody to really get a rebound. And that's what Moses did. That's what Charles did. That's what a slender, skinny Dennis Rodman did. He as skinny as he was. We were looking at stats the other day, talking about him and PJ Tucker's, how he doesn't really score the ball, but maybe he's Rodman. Rodman got 28 rebounds one game. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. There's got to be that love for that physicality.
Yes.
And that's what Moses, if you go look up his rebounding numbers, you don't get all those rebounds, particularly on the offensive end,
Nope.
if you don't love physicality.
That's right. That's right, Brandon. That's right.
And you're right about just the testament to his greatness. All you need to know is we don't have Charles Barkley or Hakeem Olajuwon without Moses, because that's who was pushing Hakeem when Hakeem got to America in Houston, when Moses was still in Houston, Moses Malone. So if Moses was so great, he helped propel these two guys to greatness as well. Two of the greatest players we've ever seen.
That's it.
So,
Hall of Famers, both of them, Hall of Famers.
Just incredible players, probably not where they ended up being if not for Moses Malone.
That's correct.
So, like you said, y'all got Moses. Everyone's got their newspapers. They know this is the year.
This is the year. This is it.
Was there ever any doubt that it was the year? Because I'm looking at the regular season record, and I don't know if I could find any doubt in hindsight. But was it ever like, oh, you know what? We might have got too happy too soon?
During the regular season, I would say no. But I think when we got to, because you got to remember back then in those playoff days, I think it was the first round was best 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 3 in the very first round, and then it was best 4 out of 7. And so Moses predicted 4-5-4, 4-4-4. So I think when we lost that first game to Milwaukee, was when it was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to go as smoothly as we thought, right? Another great team, another great team. My mom was a huge Milwaukee Bucks fan with Marcus Johnson and Sidney Moncrief and those guys, and so another great team. And so I think that one loss was just like, okay, but they came right back, and it was off to the finals. Here we go, let's do it.
I want to talk about the regular season awards that the Sixers got that season. So 65-17 record, which is incredible. Moses repeats as MVP for a different team, that doesn't happen. Like Wilt is the only MVP to change teams in the offseason, but I don't believe he won MVP the following year like Moses did. Bobby Jones wins the first ever Sixth Man of the Year.
Correct.
Dr. J and Moses, all NBA first team. Bobby Jones, Mo Cheeks, Moses Malone, all defense first team. All defense first team.
Defense, yes.
And then that's without even mentioning Andrew Toney, who was dropping 20 a game.
Yes. So
when you look at that, I would be like Moses. I would be thinking fo myself. And yeah, the Knicks, that was a sweep. That was Bernard King,
yes,
and young Bill Cartwright.
Another one of my favorite players.
Yeah, with the Bill Cartwright with the jump shot. I still don't know how that actually went towards the hoop. And then, like you said, the Bucks, reading off this Bucks roster, you mentioned Marcus Johnson, Sidney Moncrief, Junior Bridgman.
Had the pleasure of meeting Junior Bridgman last year in Philly for an event. Great guy.
Because he kind of aligns with what you're trying to do, because I remember reading, I believe it was in Sports Illustrated, rest in peace to Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, really.
Wendy's and Chili's franchises to build a huge empire, and now he's using his money to do different things and help
Yes.
communities and everything, like
Yes.
you're doing as well.
Yeah.
And I just, anytime I see Junior Bridgman, I just think Wendy's. I'm like, that's the man with the frosty. But
Yes.
he
Yes.
could hoop too.
He could hoop too.
They also
Brian
had
Winters. Brian Winters.
yes. So this is kind of funny because I think of him as the first coach of the Vancouver Grizzlies. That's
Right. I
who
didn't.
Brian Winters is to me.
That's right.
I remember reading because I used to read almanacs all the time, the basketball
Yes.
almanacs, and seeing that he
Yes.
played too, and I was like, this guy played
Yes.
because he looked very stressed. Like I think
Yes.
something about his face, he just looked gaunt and stressed all the time. I just could not picture him D'ing up. They also had Bob Lanier on that Bucks team.
Right.
And then Paul Pressey was getting
Paul
very few
Pressey.
minutes, but he was
Yes.
on the team
Yes. Yes.
the first.
Villanova alum. Mhm.
Yes, yep, another Philly. So another Philly tie, also credited as being the first point forward.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And the last name I'm going to drop is Harvey Catchings.
Harvey Catchings, former Sixer.
Yep, former Sixer, dad of Tamika Catchings, who all-time great women's player.
That's right.
And then I think I remember reading that he was on that Sixers team with Joe Bryant, and then they played together in Italy too. So Tamika and Kobe were playing together in Italy.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. You connected all the dots there, Bird.
I was like, okay, because I remember reading these names, and I was like, okay,
That's right. That's
these
right.
are familiar to
Harvey.
me.
Yeah, Harvey was on that team that lost to Portland. He was on that team that lost to Portland in the
Bill
championship.
Walton,
Yep. Bill Walton, Maurice Lucas, Bobby Gross. So many great players on that team. Yeah, that was heartbreaking. I still remember Darryl and Mo Lucas squaring off. I mean, squaring off.
I tell you what, that says a lot about Daryl Dawkins because Mo Lucas, he was not someone to mess around with.
No, he was not. No, he was not. But I mean, the NBA has changed so much. That's just to me, that's just the golden era of NBA, man. That's late 70s, 80s up to the 90s. And the Sixers had their bumps. I mean, let's not, you know, talk about the year after they won the championship. But the year after they won the championship, when they went out in the first round to the New Jersey Nets of all teams, Buck Williams and some of those guys. But
Buck Williams, that's a throwback.
Yeah, that's a straight up throwback. So they had their bumps. They had their bumps after that, and they paid for it. And they really have paid for it. That's one of the things that fans around here say we're still paying for trading Moses. We've been back to championship once with AI. We still paying for trading Moses. So it's just a love of the game, and I love the game. I just love the game.
You and me both. So y'all bounce back from losing the one game to Milwaukee, then make it to the finals, rematch with the Lakers. How are you feeling heading into that series?
Well, here's the thing. I'm a huge Irvin Magic Johnson fan, right? So everybody's harassing me like your boy is going down, your boy is going down. I'm like, okay, yes. I'm like, yes, let's do it this year. As I'm like, it's 83, baby. He got to take it today.
It's a win-win for you.
It's a win-win for me, and Magic was great, as Magic always was in the playoff. Magic's playoff performances, I don't think he really gets enough credit when you look at playoff performances. Magic was big time in the playoffs. Like, he was huge in the playoffs. And so, they come here and the Sixers take them game 1 and 2, like, boom, boom. like it's nothing. Lakers say, okay, whatever, boom, boom, 1 and 2. And it's like, okay, we get ready to go out west and see what happens, right? Because we got the 4-4-4 on the line, and I think game 3, they came out really, really strong. Sixers came from behind in that game, and they really came out strong. It was a little game three was a little up in the air, but game four, man, that was a beautiful game of basketball. That was just a beautiful game of basketball.
So what's the
Beautiful.
feeling like when the buzzer goes off?
When the buzzer goes off in game four, matter of fact, we are already outside after Cheeks' dunk. We are already outside. We already outside. Some folks are on the porch. That back then we was watching TV on the porch, like, and we are already outside, walking up and down the street, up and down the streets, because we had finally won an NBA championship. Like, my sons are so jealous that I got to see an NBA championship. They're like, "Mom, like, what was that like? You got to see an actual NBA championship." And I mean, and they've had the Phillies and they've had the Eagles since then, but they're basketball fans like me. So they like, an NBA championship is just, it's not like it. I mean, my
Mm.
mom worked for the Sixers the year after they won the championship, but that year she went to the parade. We were just all we were everywhere. I mean, at night, I mean, it was just like a weekend of activity and ride through the streets and parties, and it was incredible meeting the team at the airport when they came back with the trophy. Like, we were everywhere they were, we were. The whole city, everywhere they were, we were. It was incredible.
Wow. Because that is just like, that's how building a champion used to be. And I would argue still is, because you've seen how Denver has had to kind of take their lumps until they won. But
Yeah.
you used to just, you would not try to go get a bunch of free agents. Obviously, it was a different dynamic with on the business side too. So it's not like you could really do that. But
Hmm.
you wouldn't try to get a bunch of superstars. It would just be homegrown. Like Dr. J got there, what, 1976? This is like a
Hmm.
7-year process
Right. That's
to
right.
pull it off. And that was
Right.
just kind of the norm.
Yeah, yeah, and you drafted guys again, like you said, Cheeks, late round pick, Toney,
Tony.
and a couple guys that really kind of unsung as a part of that playoff team. A lot of people, like, I remember when they got Mark Iverson, I was like, who's this Mark Iverson guy? But he was just a space filler. We all knew that at the end of the game, Bobby Jones and Doc would be the last ones on the court, but it was strategic, like, Billy Cunningham doesn't really get enough credit about that team that they really put together, him and Pat Williams,
Pat
and how
Williams.
they put that team together. And even with guys that could come in and give you spot minutes, like a Clement Johnson, who was an excellent backup center, and Earl Curitan, another one that would come in and those spot minutes just to spell Moses or spell Doc, at times like that, and guys like Sedell Three and Franklin Edwards. These were guys that were just like, that could just come in. Clint Richardson was one of my favorite players as well. So Clint was a real defensive guy. So he would come in and he would lock down Byron Scott for a period of time just to give cats a blow. So it was just a beautifully put together team, to your point, as far as outside of Moses and Bobby as trades. The rest of those guys were homegrown. They were drafted. The
That's
rest of
how
those
it
guys,
was done.
that was how it was done.
And you're right, Pat Williams as a GM, because he put together the Penny and Shaq Magic later on.
That's right.
And that's another team where you're drafting players and developing them. And they
Mhm.
made a finals. Of course, they broke up because the owner didn't want to pay Shaq, but it is
Yeah.
what it is. So you have this championship. There wasn't really repeats. Back then, it was like, okay, you get a turn, and you hope to circle back around. But did y'all think, I mean, look, we dominated not only the regular season, we only lost one game in the playoffs. You had to be optimistic heading into the next season.
Yeah.
So what kind of went wrong to where it kind of fell apart to where you're losing to Buck Williams and the Nets?
And Darryl Dawkins was on that team too.
That's
That
right.
next team. And I think I think a couple of things happened. Moses got injured at some point during the season that year. It's hard to play at that level year after year.
Yes.
And so I think that that was part of it. And matter of fact, I was at game because that was best 2 out of 3 of that. I was at one of those Nets games, and they just seemed hungrier than the
Mm.
Sixers. I don't know if it was one of those things where the Sixers thought that they was just going to walk through. We were gutted that they went out in the first round, man.
Mm.
We were gutted. Like, we could not believe that they lost in the first round. And I guess that was Michael Ray Richardson that was on that, probably on that team.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure
that's a
Michael Ray,
name.
I'm almost certain that Michael was on that team. And he was wow. This is all I can say. Wow. He was doing whatever he wanted. The Mojigs, Toney, he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. And we were gutted because we couldn't believe that they actually went out in the first round. Couldn't believe
That
it.
name drop got me because Michael Ray Richardson, he got caught up, I think, with drugs in the
Yeah,
80s.
yeah,
But when
yeah,
he
yeah.
was clean and focused, oh my gosh. I think he
Oh
might
my
have led the
goodness.
league in steals a couple times. Just could do it all.
Could do it all. Could do it all, Brandon. Had the size, and not he's like 6'5", 6'6", but he had the size. He was quick. He could shoot. He was forced, like he had power to his game. He had speed. He was such a like Michael was just, like you
Mm.
said, when he was clean, that boy, that was a bad man right there. That was a bad too. And I think by that time, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure by that time Bernard King was on that team too. I think it was Buck Williams,
Well, it would have been
Bernard.
close because I know
Yeah, yeah, not that
that
season.
feel. I'm not going to stop and Google, but that
Yeah,
feels pretty close to being right.
yeah. So they had a good team. I don't want to downplay the fact that they weren't good. They had a good team, but they shouldn't have beat the Sixers. They shouldn't have beat the Sixers. That
Now,
should not have happened.
and then I believe it was after that season's the '84 draft. So, okay, you get this pick from the Clippers there was a 1978 trade for World Be Free is how you
World
got the
be
pick.
free.
Another great player, a character who is so good in that era. Originally named Lloyd.
Lloyd, that's right.
Everyone said he was all world, changed his name to World Be Free. He was a great scorer. They make that trade. They get the Barkley pick. So there had to be some hope going into 84, 85. You don't know really
Mhm.
what you have in Barkley because, like you said, he was testing the limits of those Auburn uniforms with all that he
Yes.
was eating. But you get this very high pick, and you still have most of that core. So
Aging, but they're still together. Aging, but still together.
yep, and but the one thing that really seems to be a difference is I believe this is when Andrew Toney started having the foot issues.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering how much of a role that played in like, okay, we've got this aging core, but kind of seems to me like Toney was supposed to be the bridge between that aging core and Barkley,
Yeah.
but then you didn't really get that bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't get that bridge. And then also in that same draft, they drafted Leon Wood that year too.
NBA referee.
Yeah, NBA referee Leon Wood, who was to become Mo Cheeks' heir apparent, right? So to your point, as far as that bridge, but without Toney, that opportunity, I think Katz and them got a little nervous and
Mm.
got a little desperate. Doc is aging, Bobby's aging, Moses is aging. What are we going to do? Which made the trade even made even lesser sense when you think about it, to trade Moses for Brad Daugherty, even though Brad Daugherty did not have a very long career, he had a good solid career. Big NASCAR guy now,
Yeah.
does NASCAR for ESPN, big NASCAR guy now. But that's what made it even more perplexing, because now and Charles says it best when he said, when they told him, he said the Sixers can't be that stupid. That was literally his answer. Sixers can't be that stupid. But they were.
Because
Uh,
Moses, he kept producing, he kept putting up numbers in the league 4 years, almost a decade after that trade.
Hmm.
So it was kind of odd at the time. We didn't have the training and everything where you see a guy like LeBron and KD who are older guys producing today. So maybe it was a bit of an anomaly with Moses Malone, but he still put up numbers for a while.
Yeah, yeah. So he went to was also Moses goes to Washington for Jeff Ruland,
Yes.
who was never any good in my opinion. I never was a big fan. I didn't think he wasn't Moses caliber worthy,
No.
and they get Roy Henson, um, who has bad knees. So you get Roy Henson who has bad knees. You get Jeff Ruland who has bad knees. So it's like, are you really improving your roster? Right? It was just totally, totally perplexing. And if I'm not mistaken, by that time Pat had moved on to start building Orlando, or he had taken a hiatus, or somewhere in between there. He had moved on, and so wasn't totally his decision. This was Cats. We all knew it was Cats. Not believing in Moses, not wanting to pay Moses. Again, whatever. Doc getting older, whatever the case may be, and so it was a sad, sad day in the city of Philadelphia.
That does sound rough because yeah, you mentioned Doc. He retired in '87, I believe,
Hmm.
and then it's
Hmm.
just there's nothing left
Nothing.
at that point. Really, you just got Barkley. Then of course Barkley he gets traded to Phoenix, and so it was kind of dark times in Philly until
Hmm.
AI showed up.
Yep.
That what was that like as someone who had seen the glory days, and then you're
Yeah.
thinking like we should be in the mix with the Lakers and Celtics and then Pistons in the later 80s and early
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then none of
Yeah.
that comes around. None of that comes to fruition.
Yeah.
And then it's just like nothing going on
Yeah.
until AI came on the scene.
Yeah. And Charles, I want to go back to Charles for just a minute because Charles talks about that time about when they got Mahorn and Mike Jaminski and Johnny Dawkins and Hersey Hawkins and Ron Anderson was coming off the bench, that he felt like that was the only time in his era post that trade that they could compete.
Mm.
But that was Jordan. That was,
Yeah.
that was
That was tough. That was
that
tough
was
to
tough.
deal with.
That was Jordan. And then, Charles goes to Phoenix because he just can't do it anymore. And then and I'm a big college basketball fan, so I had seen AI play. I had seen him because that was at the height of the Big East when he was there. And again, it's like, in between there, you had Sean Bradley was probably sprinkled in there somewhere too, I think.
Yeah. Now,
So,
number two pick,
yeah,
Sean
number two
Bradley.
pick. Yeah, yep. So he was kind of sprinkled in there somewhere, and you get Allen, and it's going to be rough, but the excitement level of this guy who's barely 6 foot that could shoot the lights out and get to wherever he wanted on the court. Kobe said it best. We're fortunate that he's not 6'5", because he could get anywhere on the court whenever he wanted. And they had the right mixture because Pat Croce, who had been a part of that Sixers team in other roles. He's now part owner. Comcast comes in, and it's just a whole new dynamic as far as where that old ownership group is gone. Cats is gone. That whole ownership, that old group is gone, and it's a whole new level of excitement as far as where we can go now on the coattails of Allen Iverson. So it was really transformational when the Sixers drafted him.
They had been trying to draft. You mentioned Sean Bradley, but then I remember they tried to get a Barkley replacement in Clarence Weatherspoon. They got Jerry Stackhouse. That looked like a pretty
Yeah,
good
the
pick.
Stackhouse. Yeah, yeah, Stackhouse.
That didn't really work out with
Hmm.
AI. And then they decided to go all in on this little guy, like you said.
Hmm.
Really can't think of a team going all in on a guy that small. I guess maybe Isaiah would be
Maybe Isaiah.
the
Hmm.
only other
Hmm.
guy who they're just going all in on.
Yeah.
And they build this team.
But even with Isaiah though, Daly didn't have to change the way he coached.
Correct.
Right? Larry Brown had to literally change the way he coached and the way that they built that team to completely run through him without the ball being in his hand to start. Because it wasn't until Snow came that it was like, okay, Larry's like, okay, we got to do something different because this guy's on a whole nother level. So they get Eric Snow, and that totally changes the whole dynamic of the team when they get Snow and what's my man's name? Tyrone Hill, and Theo Ratliff, and then when they and Aaron McKee, and they get guys that don't need the ball.
That's the key.
Okay? They got guys that didn't need the basketball, and that totally changed the whole wisdom with the Pistons. Isaiah was just so dynamic already and a good defender. They just had to put the right pieces in place. Like even when they traded Dantley to get Mark Aguirre, right, so that they could get over that hump, that was just, okay, that's just one little missing link. Okay, and they got over that hump immediately. So, with Allen, I think it was a little different.
And not only is he like one of a kind as a player on the court, but then the influence he had on basketball off the court. What was it like being in Philly with that? Because I know what it was like being in Charleston, South Carolina. And you were trying to look like AI. You see everyone trying to look like AI. Doesn't matter. Like the little country white kids, doesn't matter. Everyone wanted to be AI.
Yes. Everyone wanted to be. I mean, you heard, which I thought was awesome, Dwayne Wade in his Hall of Fame speech. He had Allen, be his inductor, right? Because he said he wore a sleeve on his elbow because Allen Iverson wore one. And what most people don't know, he wore one because he didn't have any elbow cartilage in his elbow, so that was to protect his elbow. It wasn't a fashion thing. It was for a purpose. He didn't have any cartilage in his elbow, and so in Philly, it was AI 24/7. It was just, we knew where he hung out at. He loved the TGI Fridays on City Avenue. That was his spot. It was a hotel there at the time called the Adams Mark Hotel. That's where all his crew hung out at. I mean, it was just like Allen owned this city. That's why right now Allen shows up and it's AI. He owns the city. I've never seen a guy, and this includes Doc, and this includes Barkley, Donovan McNabb. You can go through all of our franchises that can show up in the city at any given time, at any given where, and it's stop, it's claps, it's what's up AI. It's just like Allen culturally, what he brought not only to the league but to Philly. It's unmatched, it's unparalleled. I don't think anybody, and that includes number 21 on the current team, will ever capture that. I just don't see that happening. Allen is in the class I was on.
You can't think of Allen Iverson without thinking of Philly. Like, I know he's from Virginia, but
that's right.
Philly and Allen Iverson, they just go hand in hand in my mind. I picture him on the cover of Slam magazine with the blowout fro.
With the roses.
Yep. That's Allen Iverson. Like, man, I wish I could relive that time and appreciate it even more because I was all in on Allen Iverson.
Yes.
Just what he brought to the culture and what he represented. Yeah. But just to go back, like, I miss that so much.
Yes, me too. I mean, I don't go to a lot of games now. I do still go. I mean, I go, but when you went down there, when Bubba Chuck, as like Brown called him, when you went down there when Bubba Chuck was here, it was an experience, man. It was just an experience.
I can only imagine. So before we get to this year's team, because I do want your thoughts.
Yes.
I need to know, you mentioned you went to Temple, born and raised in Philly.
Yep.
You are one of the most impressive basketball minds I've ever had a chance to talk to. Who are some of your favorite players with Philly connections?
With Philly connections, wow, man, I got to think about that one for a minute. I get in trouble if I don't say Kobe.
True.
Right? I would get in immediate trouble if I don't say Kobe. With Philly connections,
Because truly a basketball city, I think of Gratz High School. You got Rasheed
yeah,
Wallace came through
yeah,
there.
Rashid, yeah, Rashid. Obviously, I know Rashid. I'm gonna give you a guy. I'm gonna start with a guy with two guys. One ended up in the NBA. One unfortunately did not. One would be Pooh Richardson. Played for a period of time for the Indiana Pacers. He would be a friend. He would be one of my with local ties. Another one would be the late great Hank Gathers, and we
And
just
Gathers.
believe that Hank would have been a tremendous NBA player. And I don't say that just because he was a friend, but his game was just, I mean, 6'11" and could do it all with the basketball, just could absolutely do it all. I
Second
grew
player
up though.
ever.
Yeah,
Second player ever to lead the
nation.
NCAA in
Mhm.
college and scoring in the same season.
Yep.
The first was Xavier McDaniel
Xavier met the X-Man.
from Columbia, South Carolina. So I got to shout out my South Carolina people. Also went to Wichita State. I don't know how that
Yes, he
happened,
did. Yes, he
but
did.
yeah, Hank Gathers. That
Yes, he
story
did.
obviously incredibly tragic, but you watch
Yeah.
him and watch the 30 for 30 and see what
Yeah.
he was doing on the court. Man,
Hank was amazing. I grew up a big fan of Gene Banks, as well. Gene Banks played for Duke. Actually, that was when I first started following college basketball, was when Gene Banks went to Duke. So he was someone that I was a big fan of. I have to really think about like some other guys. Aaron, obviously, you mentioned Aaron McKee, obviously.
I
And
think
those are
Pooh
guys that I ran
Richardson
with.
was
Yeah.
Pooh. He went to UCLA.
People went to UCLA.
I
That's
was
right.
trying
Yep.
to find that one.
Went to Ben Franklin High School here and went to UCLA. Yep.
A guy who I always loved went to Temple, Eddie Jones.
Yes. Eddie is actually a friend of the family.
Let him
Eddie's a
know
friend.
I said, I'm sure he'll care about my opinion. The smoothest guy I've ever seen on a basketball court. Like that dude just always looked unbothered. And I remember him taking off from the free throw line and shooting a finger roll. And it was just
Hmm.
crazy, just smooth Eddie Jones. Also Charlotte Hornets back when I was keeping up with them too.
Yeah, that was yeah, Eddie was a nice player, man. Eddie really was a really nice player. Me and my mom, we often joke about Joe Bryant because Joe really was a mediocre player. The fact that Kobe went on to be so great, it's kind of amazing when you think
That
about
blows
it.
your mind.
Yeah, it just really blows your mind. He was really a mediocre player. Another guy for me is Jameer Nelson.
Mm.
I love Jameer. Obviously, followed his career from St. Joe's all the way to the NBA, and now he's the I don't know if you noticed or not, but he's the Sixers D League team's general manager.
Okay. I
Yeah,
saw his
yeah,
son playing.
yeah. He
I was
plays for.
sick. I was sick. I was like, am I old enough to be watching Jameer Nelson Jr. right now? I was like, please let it be another one. But no, it was the right one.
It was him. I seen it too. Who is it? You remember who he plays for, Brian? Because I just seen it the other day, and I was like, Jameer Nelson Jr. Is that right? Is it Baylor? I think he plays for Baylor.
I do have to look this one up because I can't get this
Yeah.
one wrong because he's still hooping. TCU, it looks like.
Oh, TCU. Okay, maybe they were playing Baylor. Okay,
Yes,
okay,
yes. Yep.
yeah, maybe
TCU
they were
Baylor
playing
just
Baylor.
played.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, okay. Um, yeah. So let me see. I'm trying to. Oh, my friend, Rasul Butler was another
Oh,
guy. Rasul was another. Lionel Simmons. Those were
L
guys.
Train.
Yeah. Those were some of my guys. Yeah. And I was a huge fan because I played ball. So during the summer league, a lot of us played in the Sunny Hill summer league because he had men's and he had women's. And so I got to hang around with Lou Lloyd a lot because he was always playing down there. Horace Pappy Owens was another guy that was always down there. As well as Lionel Simmons and Pooh and all of those guys. So a lot of those guys and Greg and Doug Overthorpe, Randy Woods, and all of those guys were playing around the same time that I was playing.
Okay, well, talk a little bit about your game because we haven't talked about you as a hooper.
Well, it must have tell. I was big. I was big in high school. I was big in high school. That's about it for me. Was lost my video. Let me see here. I don't know what happened. There we go.
Back.
Yeah. I played. So I played during those times when those guys were playing. All of those Hank and all those guys. And I wanted to be a writer. I never wanted. I didn't have the opportunities that these young ladies have today to go and play professionally. Overseas was just becoming the norm. An opportunity there. So it was. I don't know what's going on with my stuff. Let me see. It was just becoming an opportunity when I was graduating from high school and going to college. So like now, I mean, the women's game is at an all-time high now. I mean, the women's game is incredible now.
Leaps and bounds they've made.
Yes.
Even since the WNBA started. I remember watching the first season. It's like so much better. I enjoy it. That's one of my favorite things to watch.
So do the Houston Comets still have a team?
They do not, unfortunately. That
I
was my
didn't think
team
so.
growing up, though. But I was
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was a
Cynthia
huge
Cooper,
all the
Cheryl
Swoops. Kim Porter, Cynthia Cooper. That was my squad.
Yes. I thought that's how it was because I had just come off the Rockets going back to back, and then the Comets won 4 straight. And I was like, every team I pull for is just going to win rings. Did not turn out like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
So I do, speaking of rings,
Yes.
now the Sixers, pretty good season so far. I know Embiid a little banged up with his knee. How do you feel about the current state of how things are going with this current 76ers team, especially a couple of big moves, got rid of Harden to start the season, brought in Nick Nurse to coach. Are y'all feeling good up there or what's the deal?
Well, we were until Joel got hurt. We were feeling really good. And then it wasn't just him. We've had several, DeAnthony Melton hasn't played in almost 2 months now. Having Robert Covington back, we all thought that was a plus defensively. We needed a defensive wing. He hasn't played in almost a month now. Now Tyrese's ankle is sprained, and then Nick Batum was out for a period of time, and then then the flu ran through the team like crazy. So guys were out and Tobias never misses a game, who was out because he was sick with the flu. So. I honestly, Brandon, always saw this year as somewhat, and I know we're at a pivotal time in Joel's career, but I always saw this year as somewhat of a bridge year. And what I mean by that is because of them trading Harden, and because trading Harden and Tobias's money coming off at the end of the year, they're gonna have a lot of caps. They're gonna have a lot of cap space, and people are like, yeah, but this is a weak free agency summer, right? Because we know Paul George is going to go back to the Clippers. He's not going to leave. But you make those moves. You have that space. Because it doesn't necessarily mean you sign a free agent. It means you may do a sign and trade like they did when they got rid of Jimmy. You don't know what the things are that you can do. And so I always saw this year as a bridge year. I felt good about them being in that number 2 seed. I would love for them being, if they were able to hold on to that. But man, oh man, I ain't gonna lie. I gotta be impressed with the Knicks and how they've been able to turn it around here lately. They're playing pretty they're playing pretty good, and that worries me.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson is out of
Yeah,
this world, especially
yeah,
we were talking about small guys. He's not quite on that level, but he's still
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Uh,
Jalen's pretty good, and I've never been much of a Julius Randle fan, but them getting OG has been more impactful than I really thought it was going to be. And what's their coach's name? Tom, what's his name? What's their coach's name? I
Thibodeau,
can't think. Thibodeau. Thibodeau's a heavy defensive guy anyway, right? So for him to get a guy like OG and you got Mitchell Robinson back there and some other things that allows them to do defensively is really playoff basketball is about defense. And so them being able to defend again, nobody can stop 21 when he's 100%. I mean, that's beside the point. But I'm impressed by the Knicks. So, just by us losing these last couple games on this road trip, we've slipped all the way down to the
now
5 seed. It's unfortunate, but I mean, it is what it is. So I'm disappointed, but again, I saw this year as a bridge year. I really did. I felt like next year was going to be our opportunity to really push all the chips on the table and go for it.
I think that's a good point, particularly bringing in a new coach. You got to
Yep.
see, kind of let Tyrese Maxey come into his own a little
Yeah.
bit. I
Yep.
think that makes a lot of sense. Embiid, he's had another incredible season, even better than last year. What's
Yes.
the general feeling about him? Because I mean, I feel like he's a pretty polarizing player nationally.
Hmm. Yeah. Joel is interesting, and I think the spin that we've seen this last 2 weeks has really been unfortunate.
Yes.
And I think that Draymond summed it up best, right? Because he talked about in his podcast, guys forcing it. Now here we have the face of our league, one of the top players in our league, possibly severely injured, because he kept hearing the criticism that he's ducking this one, he's ducking that one, and he's only playing against bad teams. And people got to realize these guys are human. Like, you think that they don't hear that stuff and they don't want to go out and perform. And I've never questioned his injuries because I just believe that if he's hurt, he's hurt. And I told my son this a while back. I said when he was out those 2 years with his foot, and they did. People don't really talk about the surgery that was performed, but I told my son then he will never have an issue with his foot again, and he hasn't. He's got almost like a super foot, the type of Andrew.
Yeah.
Like if Andrew Toney could have gotten what Joel got, he would be in the Hall of Fame right
Hall of
now
Famer. Yep.
if he could have gotten what Joel got to reconstruct his foot. And so, he again, polarizing is the ideal word. I told you my one pet peeve is his failure to put his body on folks when it comes to rebounding. But outside of man, the guy just does anything that he wants. He scores. He didn't develop this passing thing. He told Brett Brown when we played San Antonio, he said, I'm passing the ball now, right? Because he's starting to pass the ball, and he's a student of the game. If you've ever heard him talk about like he wanted to play because he watched Kobe, and he watched Akeem, and even when James was here, James taught him to step back three. Like, who's the guy's 7 foot, and James Harden told him to step back three, and he can do it. Like, that's crazy. That's really, really crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I enjoy watching his game. I've enjoyed watching him since he was at Kansas to see how far he's come since he was at Kansas. Because I mean,
Yes.
night and day, especially completely different body as well.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I think I agree with you about the physicality, and I think sometimes when he gets tired, he'll start to force threes.
Yep.
And so those are really my two things where I'm like, man, be a little more physical, hit the boards harder, and
Yeah.
then if you're tired and you can't, don't shoot a three when you're tired. Like that mid range, I mean, he's automatic from the mid
Yeah.
range.
For the mid range, automatic.
Getting the post, like how many people can guard him straight up? Like I don't, if there's a list, it's very small. And he's the player who I think could most play like Olajuwon. So that's how I want him to play, even though the game's different. So you do have to
Yeah.
adapt to today's game.
Yeah.
But he's really tightened up on particularly the 3-point shooting critique that I had for him. Like he still shoots it, but that's not like, okay, I'm just going to get a shot up right now. He's thinking through it more and using it better, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And the other part of his game that I want to see less of is the dribbling. Whenever he dribbles, I get nervous.
That's true. And sometimes his decision making can be a little slow.
Yes.
Particularly with the dribbling. But to say that and still have him putting up the numbers he's putting up and still think there's still some things he could clean up and get even better.
Scary.
Ooh.
Scary.
That's something that's a nice problem to have.
That's it. Scary. Yeah, I'm a huge Joel fan. My friends all tease me because my favorite player on the 76ers is Tobias Harris. Not that I don't love Joel, but Tobias is my favorite player, and he's been playing so well till he got sick. Like he's been playing, and I think it's Nurse. I think Nurse has unleashed him in some ways, and that this is a guy that's 6'9", can rebound, can shoot, spot up, and can back down. You know who he reminds me of a little bit, Brandon, when he's in the post? He reminds me of Adrian Dantley when he's in the post. That back down and turn. That's what I remember most from Dantley's game. That back down, spin, pop. Like that, like when I see Tobias in the post, he reminds me of Adrian Dantley.
That's a great comp. He's a guy who got a bad rap because of the contract.
Yes.
But the thing with the contracts is the further you go along in the contract, typically, like the less huge it seems. Like it makes a little more sense the more in the future you get as everyone else's contracts rise as well.
Exactly.
And really it comes down to, can he play and can he not? Like he's already on the team, so there's no point in really being too upset about the contract because he's here.
He's here. That's what I tell folks. I'm like, y'all do understand that it's the last year of the contract?
Exactly. So stop
I'm talking about the contract. Yeah.
If the Lakers call me today and offer me a max deal, I'm taking it. Like y'all can say, Brandon's sorry, he's not worth that much money. I might not be to you, but at the bank, I am. And that's all that matters.
That's all. And that's what I tell folks. Like don't blame him. Blame the league.
Correct. like I'm not gonna be like, no, don't give me that kind of money. I'm not worth it.
I'm not worth that. Like, no, blame the league. And the guys that have come by since Tobias's contract, guys that are not even good as him have gotten more money than him.
Exactly. So I don't know. I do like his game a lot, and I am glad to see y'all playing better because I like it, especially coming up in the 90s, seeing those teams who were good in the 90s or even like the 80s, like you're talking about, be good again.
Yes.
So we're seeing the Knicks, the Celtics, the 76ers. My Lakers not cooperating, but that's all right. It is what it is. I knew it was coming anyway, so I'm been meditating a lot, so I'm gonna be okay.
You gonna be all right? Okay,
be all right.
You're gonna be all right.
Exactly. So before I let you go, I got to hear about everything you're doing with Mom Your Business, how you started, anything you want to say. The floor is yours because you've been fantastic talking hoops, and this is even more important than that.
Thank you so much, Brandon. This has been a great time. We started Mom Your Business really out of frustration from hearing friends of mine who were entrepreneurs struggling to get capital, that needed resources. And so I was working actually at Cheney University at the time, helping small businesses to get business certifications and helping them with doing business with the government. When I started Mom Your Business, we really took off in 2021. And since 2021, we've helped founders raise either through grants or loans or equity investments, We've helped founders raise close to $500,000
Wow.
to invest in their business. And so through that, where our goal is really to alleviate, we believe that entrepreneurship is a pathway out of poverty. And so we want to be able to provide founders with the skills and the resources and the tools that they need to grow their business. So we have a business accelerator program. We have an online technical assistance program. We do pitch competitions and partners with other organizations here. In Philadelphia, we're getting ready to roll out a new program focused specifically on fractional support for small businesses. And then we just opened up the MYB Hub. So we actually have a physical location now that's a co-working space with a creator studio, with a conference room in the basement when that's completed, for people to be able to come, for entrepreneurs to be able to come, safe space, work on your business, talk about your business, get support for your business. And so we're excited about 2024 and where we're going with our organization.
No, it's a fantastic thing. I know I was in the venture capital lane for a little bit, about as long as I could take it, because you see the difference in how much money gets to white founders versus black and brown founders. It is truly unbelievable.
It's really and it's unbelievable from the standpoint of the fact that we're a good bet, right?
Correct.
When you look at Black women in particular being the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, yet the least funded, we can't get loans. There's so many other things that we can't do. And then when you look at some of our white counterparts who have gotten multiple opportunities. Like I talk about the gentleman, just as an example, a gentleman that founded WeWork as
We
an
work.
example. Drove that in the ground, made it and came right back, and they gave him millions of dollars or more on a project. To this day, he still hasn't launched, right? And so it's just indicative of the systemic issues that we face as Black and brown people in this country. And so, and now as the when you look at, and it breaks my heart when I see what Ariane and her team are going through with the Fearless Fund, being sued by this group that was a part of the overturning of affirmative action, being told to stop giving money to Black. It's sad because only 5% of venture capital goes to Black and brown founders, and y'all want to take that little 5%. Y'all want to take that little 5%.
That's the wildest thing talking about the lawsuit, is how you do away with this thing and kind of flip it to use it for evil.
Yes.
To make the gap even larger.
To make the gap even larger. It just doesn't make good sense, right?
No.
And studies show economically that when Black women thrive, the economy is better. I'm not making this up. Look it up, Google it. This is a fact. And yet you have people like, Steve Miller and these other guys that want to just take this little bit of percentage away from us. And it's really, like I said, but I commend Ariane because she has handled it with grace. She probably cries at night, but she's handled it in front of the cameras with grace, and we support her. We're a supporter. We signed on to the petition because we have a fund too, First Market Ventures, and so we understand that plight. And one thing that I refuse to do, and I talked to my board about it. Do we want to change that, saying that we serve as Black and brown founders, or do we want to say underrepresented? Right? Do we want to use that language? And we're like, no. This is who we are. This is what we do. We're going to be true to who we are and what we do, and we're going to just trust God for the result, for the outcomes. And that's just kind of where I am with it. And so we're going to keep pressing and seeing what happens. And it's been tough because a lot of the things that we see in the VC industry, it's mirrored in the philanthropy.
Mm.
So as a nonprofit, like fundraising has been very challenging because now after the guilt and the height of George Floyd has worn off, people go back to doing business as normal. It has become challenging again. And so I'm grateful for partners that will stand up and say, regardless of, the TD, some, and I don't want to name folks, but there are organizations and businesses that have said, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever y'all want to do over there, we're going to continue to invest in Black and brown and in diversity and all of those things.
Yeah, it is truly absurd. And that was one reason why I was like, I couldn't do it for just my health, my mental health, because it was just stressful to be able to run up against that every day. So
Yes.
I admire you for being able to do it. And you are a great person to have in the position you are in because you are making a difference. You're going to continue to make a difference. Where can people go to learn more about what you're doing as well as contribute in their own way?
Yep. So you can go to momyourbusiness.com. That's mom, YOURBUSINESS.com, momyourbusiness.com. You can also go to mybhubnorth.com. That is our space. We have a crowdfunding campaign going on right now to finish that, to finish the building. We have a little bit more work to do in the exterior, some more things, a little bit conference room in the basement that we need to finish revitalizing that. But you can go and support either one of those campaigns. And just, we appreciate any support that we can get. And it's really without the support of the people and the industry and the collaborations, we wouldn't be here. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share with your listeners about our work and talking hoops too. Oh, this has been a good
Oh,
day for me.
if this is what venture capital was like, I got to talk hoops every day. I'd still be doing it. Talking hoops, raising money.
Yes,
Woo.
that's it.
No, this has been fantastic. All that information with the sites and everything are going to go in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple. Please support. This is a great thing. It needs to happen. It needs to happen because, like Tanya just said, when Black women succeed, everyone succeeds.
That's right.
So even if you're selfish, you should want to do this. So please do. But no, this has been fantastic. I'm glad I finally I was searching. I was like, I got to talk to Tanya about something. So I'm glad that I started this series and had you on. I'm sure I'll
Yes,
have you on more as well because you know a lot of sports, particularly Philly knowledge. You got it
yes,
down.
yes, yes.
So definitely come back again. And I cannot thank you enough for being on.
Yep. Thank you so much, Brandon. Again, momyourbusiness.com, mybhubnorth.com, Sixers.com. I'm gonna get that in there too. So, but yeah, it's gonna be a long season. I'm sure you and I'll be talking on Twitter as the playoffs get here and NCAA tournament, all that kind of stuff, man. It's hoops, hoops, hoops. This is my time of the year.
You already know. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And I will catch y'all later.